this, and this is what I need to remember, that it all began in Genesis, of course, from the start of where all of the world had been fallen just by the act of Adam and Eve. Now, God made us and wants us and loves us. He made us to be able to have a relationship with Him, and He made us not to perish, not to be in hurt or pain or grief or anxiety, but because God wants us to choose Him, and because He's a gentleman, He decides to give us the choice to make. So when Adam and Eve were in the garden, there was only one thing that God told them not to do, and that was not to eat the fruit of good and evil. Now, God had everything perfect. Everything on earth was perfect. Adam and Eve was perfect. There was no sin. But because He loves us and wanted to protect them, He told them not to eat the fruit. But as of the archangels that were watching over the garden, there was one archangel that specifically wanted to be just like God, and his pride and his greed had him fall from heaven. And thus this is when the devil became the serpent in the Garden of Eden to speak to Eve, to say, why did God tell you that you can't eat of this fruit of knowledge to know good and evil? So she made the choice. We made the choice. Adam and Eve made the choice. We all make the choice. They didn't have to choose to eat the apple, but they did. And so all the rest of eternity had been fallen due to sin, due to this sin. So God had to create a way for us to be redeemed back to Him. Now, because He loves us so much, from the very beginning of time, Genesis 3:15, which is what God has shown me twice now on two separate occasions. Genesis 3:15, it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So the number one thing is that God was protecting Adam and Eve in the garden. Okay. The other is He set this up from the beginning of time to be able to have a stronghold, to have something stronger than ourselves to be able to overcome the evil. Thy head, and to bruise thy heels of that serpent, of the devil, giving us all the sin that is in the world, all the hurt, all the pain. That is all sin. That is all choice from sin. That has nothing to do with what God wants for us in our life. And that is why the gospel, which is good news, is the best story that you will ever hear. It's really a love story for everything from the beginning of time, from the moment that God breathed life into the earth, into man. It was all with the intention of love, and it was all for love for us. And here's the other thing that He had shown me. What are all things that everybody has in common? We all experience sorrow. We all experience pain. We all experience sadness, pride, grief, anxiety. But these are things that brings us to God. So when you have these things in your life that are so overwhelming and you don't know why it's happening to you, don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Embrace the grief. Embrace the sadness. Because that is what's going to allow you to open your heart more to walk towards God. How do we know that we need God? We don't know that we need God until you experience that feeling of sadness and guilt that you carry with you, because you know that you need something bigger than yourself. so that you do not die in death, but you live because of Jesus. In addition, Genesis 1:27, God says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them." So when you think about today and everybody trying to make a buck and a dollar and businesses branding, the first thing that you think of when you hear "just do it" is what? You think of Nike. Well, just like businesses protect their brands, God is protecting you. He made you in his image. You are here for a purpose. He put you here for a purpose. And as he states in Genesis 1:27, if God is God and he made everything that you see abundantly around you, can you imagine how much of him is in us because we are made in his image? We just believe. We have to believe in his power. It's his power and his love that makes us who we are.